And welcome back to Pokemon Team Creation Series. Sorry, I had a brain pause there. From Brandon F., we have the question of what is Ursula, the villain from Disney's Little Mermaid's Pokemon team? A unique kind of character to do a team for. You'd think there'd be a lot of options or very obvious options, but hold one second. Right out the gate, you know there's got to be some sort of octopus Pokemon or tentacled Pokemon that needs to be on the team. Now you might immediately go to Octillery. You also might go to like Grapple Lock, which are both octopus. But my money personally is on Malamar. Now, even though she's technically got the body of an octopus, it's octopus squid are same family related. We can make exceptions. Beyond that, I'd actually say it's the closest resembling Pokemon to Ursula. It's got purple. It's got tentacle hair, but it's also evil, and it's described as legitimately being an evil Pokemon. So Ursula is the villain. This makes sense. Mind control, hypnosis, the whole shebang. Then afterwards, I also added Jellicent onto the team. Now, Jellicent, female Jellicent to be precise. Now, Jellicent is one of those Mon that it's not really, there's not much that leans itself towards Ursula, if I'm going to be honest. Its pink color is a little too girly. If anything, the male Jellicent actually makes a bit more sense. But I think this could be a holdover Pokemon for when she was allegedly Triton's sister. At least that's how they portray it in the live-action movie. That's how they portray it in other mediums. But beyond that, I do like the dichotomy of the male Jellicent and the female Jellicent, as well as the fact that it's a female aquatic, kind of regal-looking Pokemon. So that was more or less the reason I chose that. Now, I can't remember their names, but she very infamously had her two pet moray eels. Was it Havoc and something? So her poor little poopsies. So I knew I needed to have those, but we don't actually really have a good eel Pokemon yet. We got Electros, which it's more of a lamprey than the eel, and eels and lampreys are not the same thing. But they do call it, I believe, the electric eel or eelfish Pokemon. I mean, that is what it is. I'm not personally a big fan of that idea, though. And beyond that, I mean, we do got the Wiglet line, which is based, I believe, on like pipe eels or something like that. But beyond that, there's no moray eel Pokemon. That's right up. There's also not really an electric eel Pokemon. Yeah, you do have, again, Electros would be the closest you have there, and even then, it's not really an eel so much as a kaiju-esque lamprey. That being said, though, we do have two relatively close matches with both Gorbis and its Clamperl's alternate evolution, Huntail. Now, neither of these are actually designed after or based on eels, to the best of my knowledge. They're more based off certain types of fish, like the wolffish for Huntail. There is some references to eels, like in their design plan. There's definitely some eel designs, but they're not specifically based off eels. But I think that was the best that we could do in that circumstance. Then, I mean, she's a witch. Anytime I get a witch on the team, it's got to be Hatterene. Plus, Hatterene is described as an actual predator. And in this case, Ursula was the predator, Ariel was a prey. That sounds a little bit more that sounds a little worse than it actually is. But yeah, I think that works. And again, color scheme. This actually works a lot better with Ursula. No black on it, but that's kind of saved for our last one for a little bit. Now, this last one, Zoroark. Why Zoroark? It, along with Malamar, are the only two non-water types on the team. And really, that's just because Malamar's not a water type, despite the fact it fits Ursula, I think, pretty well. This comes to the fact that Ursula, being a sorceress, being a witch, is able to transform herself into other individuals. She can actually change her form, as we saw when she changed herself into a human to try to marry Eric to foil, Ariel and Eric getting together. This, I think, there's really only a couple Mon that in the entirety of the game, lore-wise or otherwise, that can actually transform into other things. I could have gone Ditto, but Ditto, literally, that's just its gimmick. That's the only thing it does. And there are other characters in fiction that just fit a ditto much better than Ursula. Zoroark, though, is a dark type. It is mischievous, and that's where I think the transforming abilities, I think, come more into play here. Not that Zoroark is inherently evil or anything. It's not. It's just, it's a dark type. It's a mischievous Pokemon, so there you go. That makes sense in my head. So, as always, the question becomes, how balanced is this team? And it's definitely got a lot more strengths going for it than weaknesses. However, its weaknesses, while not many, are glaring. It's got a times 2 weakness to Bug with both Zoroark and Malamar. It's got a times 2 weakness to Fairy with Malamar and Zoroark again. It's got a times 3 weakness to Grass. That's really problematic. And actually, half the team is Water, I should say, not... anyway. So, yeah, all your Water types are still going to be weak to Grass. All your Water types are also going to be weak to Electric types, which is really Water's only key weaknesses, to be fair. But there's still big enough weaknesses to be a problem. So with that being said, though, how strong is this team? And that is, it's pretty strong. Your Fairy and your Psychic type are going to be able to handle your fighting types no problem. Your Dark and Ghost type will be able to excuse me. Your Psychic and your 2 Psychic types are going to be able to handle Poison types no problem. Your Ghost type, your 2 Dark types are going to be able to handle Ghost no problem. Your 2 Darks and your other Ghosts will also be able to handle Psychic no problem. Your 3 Waters will be able to handle Ground, Rock, and Fire no problem. But, as always, how about, could this team become champion in any region? And I'm going to be completely honest with you right now. Except for one region, and I'll save that region for last, there's no region this team can become champions in. And the reason for that is very simple. If we start with Paldea, your Inkay, frankly, is going to get screwed. It's going up against a bug gym first off. We're going by level cap. So you can't even beat Katie first time around. Even if you got the Gita, this is one of those teams that actually isn't good against Gita. Why is that? Well, she starts with Epatha. That's easy. You can handle that with a dark type move with Malamar. Then she also brings out Veluza. Again, not that big of a deal. But then comes out, I believe, Go-Go is next. That's where the problems really start to arrive, because you are not in a good spot against Grass here. Malamar is now going to struggle against Go-Go. In fact, it may very well go down to Go-Go. If it manages to take it down, it's going to be extremely weak. And then King Gambit comes out. And then that's where you're kind of screwed. Because even a Fairy Mon like Hatterene is also part Psychic, which means it's neutral to Dark. But King Gambit's also Steel, which means it's also neutral to Fairy. Not to mention, you still have Avalugg after that, which neither or is weak or strong. If you are able to get past them, you could beat Gita's alleged ace, which is so stupid that's her ace, and Glamora. But I don't think you are, personally. I think you stop at the King Gambit, personally, if you could get past that. Well, what about Galar? This is a case where you actually could make it through the entire gym challenge. There isn't really a gym that's a really huge struggle for you, because the Hunt Tails are trait evolutions. You can have them early, and you'll guarantee to have the Hunt Tails when you get there. You won't struggle that much, I think, against the fighting, really, because at that point you should have Malamar or close enough to it. Even Alistair, you shouldn't be that bad off with. Yeah, you really aren't struggling against any of these guys too badly. Leon, though, you're not designed for Leon. Aegislash isn't a real big problem. You got dark moves. Aegislash might get some solid hits, and it might even take it down, but it's going to be very weak. Either you take it down with the Malamar, or you go, I don't know, Zoroark next. Then comes out Dragapult, who can spam several different massively powerful attacks, and that's kind of all she wrote off that, if we're being honest. Because it has Thunderbolt, which means half your team's effed as it is. The only one you have on the team besides Zoroark that can do anything at this point is Hatterene, which is going to be at least immune to the dragon moves. But let's be honest, he's not going to use the dragon moves. So, and even if you do manage to survive, you got to deal with Haxorus, which Hattery should be able to manage. But then you still got to deal with either Seismitoad, Rhyperior, or Mr. Rhyme, all of which you're at that point too weak to do much against. And then you got to deal with either Rillaboom, who would make mincemeat of most of this team, or you got to deal with Inteleon or Cinderace, and then Charizard. You just can't beat Leon. It's just not in the cards. In Kalos, you're automatically going to be in trouble with Viola because of the type disadvantage and how low level her gym really is. However, you're not really going to be. You wouldn't be in as big a trouble as you think, even though you are quad weak the bug, simply just on the grounds that she doesn't have good move sets. So while you may lose, you could beat her. Grant, though, is next, and Grant's problematic because Jellicent, while strong, while type effective, is not going to be able to do anything against the damn Tyrant because Dragon's neutral, or Dragon resist water, making him neutral. But Inkay can get some damage done. Aurorus, you'd resist with Frillish, so not impossible. At that point, you could actually get past Karina because how Frillish's part goes, so that shouldn't be out of the order. It shouldn't be impossible. And you can still get some damage in with Huntail as well as Malamar dishing out some psychic moves. But then you got to deal with Ramos, who wipes out 3/4 of your entire team. I'm not going to lie, you might end up stopping at Ramos, if I'm going to be flat out honest. Even if that were the case, you'd also have to be struggling with Clemont's electric types. And then if you get all the way to Diantha, well, her Hawlucha has X-Scissor. Now, you should have psychic moves on your Malamar at this point. But her Hawlucha has X-Scissor. Gets one X-Scissor off, that Malamar's done. Which is very possible because that thing will outspeed your Malamar. Okay, what do you bring out after that? It's a really good question. There's really not a good answer here. Maybe Hatterene, psychic moves, it'll resist it with the fairy as well. But it's got poison jab as well. So, not a good spot. But assuming you were able to take it down barely, you're gonna have to deal with Tyrantrum, which it's just gonna come in with a head smash. It's faster than your Hatterene. Or a bite or something. If Hatterene's still alive, it's weakened to hell. And at that point, you're kind of done. Because, yeah, you can dish out some water moves, but at best, it's neutral. It's going to be crashing in. Eventually, Aurorus comes out. And even though you are strong against the rock typing it has, you're still probably going to get at least one hit in. And then Goodra comes out, and you're pretty screwed. And that's still not even counting not Phantom. Oh, God. Why am I... Gourgeist? Yeah, Gourgeist. Sorry. It's still not killing Gourgeist or Gardevoir, so that's not happening. Unova, both these teams just stop dead at Lisa. That's it. You just stop dead. There's no getting past her. It's all she wrote. The Emolgas and the Zebstrika will obliterate this team because, again, at that point in the game, it's 3/4 water, and Inkay isn't even evolved at this point. And then could you beat either champion? Iris? Probably not. Again, Hydreigon is just way too powerful, frankly. Half your moves are toast when it comes to Malamar. And it's going to have moves for pretty much the entire team. That's not to even include Haxorus or Druddigon. It's not a good matchup. And then Alder Selgor immediately takes out Malamar. It outspeeds. It's just got better stats, at least in terms of offense. After that, what do you bring out to deal with it? You don't have a good answer. You're going to have to rely on some water types and hope for the best. And at that point, you might just get taken down by the Selgor, to be frank. Even if the Selgor goes down, it's still probably taking at least 2 Mon with it. So, probably either Malamar, definitely Malamar, and Huntail or Jellicent, maybe. Then he's going to bring up maybe Buffalont. You can try your best, but I think it's going to hit hard. Then it's also Druddigon, which, yeah, Hatterene can take care of, but you're down to maybe half your team at that point. Not to mention, you guys still deal with Vanillux, Druddigon, not Selgor. What's the other one? Excavalier. Excavalier, which you have no good option for. And then Volcarona, which if your water types were still around, you could stand a shot. But at this point, you'd be lucky to have one Mon left. So that's a no. Sinnoh, you stop at Rourke. One Inkay is not going to be able to go up against Rourke's team. Could you even beat Cynthia? Spiritomb's already going to be giving you problems, particularly Malamar. But Malamar being a dark type and probably having like Night Slash or something on its moveset would certainly help you. So you could probably take Spiritomb down while still taking a lot of damage. Then that's when he brings out Rose Raid. Don't have a really good answer for Rose Raid if we're being honest. It's probably gonna end up you're gonna have to maybe use a Psychic and hope you take it down, or a Psychic move. If not, Rose Raid's probably taking down the Malamar. You probably take it down next with Hatterene, probably. Then Gastrodon comes out. It's got Storm Drain and it's got Earthquake on it. You're not in a good way at that point. Plus Milotic's still there, plus Lucario to deal with Zoroark, and let's not forget Garchomp, which would be resistant or neutral to the water moves. So no, you could not become champion in Sinnoh. Hoenn, you stop at Watson. You'd have a Huntail, but he's got two Magnemites and a Magneton, I think it was, or one Magnemite and two Magnetons. Either way, and this is just standard Watson, not Emerald Watson, where he has a Magnetric too. Your Inkay's not evolved, so you got to have an Inkay, which isn't as bad as you might think, but it's not great. But you also have a Frillish. The only thing you got fully evolved is the Huntail, and that's not going to be able to hold the entire team together. So I think you stop at Watson. Could you beat Steven? No. Skarmory alone is already going to be setting up doing Toxic Stall, Spikes, the works. Your water moves are really only going to be good against Claydol and Armaldo, if I've got that right. Because, I mean, Aggron's going to be neutral. Lileep is going to be neutral, and it's grass. You don't want to be going up against that. And freaking Metagross, you don't really have a good answer except for Zoroark, and even then, that's not... I say not other than Zoroark because Malamar's probably going to be gone at that point. So, no, definitely not Hoenn. What about Johto? You're going to struggle immediately with Bugsy. Inkay is going to go down. Frillish being Ghost does resist Bug, so it's possible you could get a win. It's not impossible, I'll say that, but it is definitely difficult. But if you can get past Bugsy, you actually got a good way towards the rest of the gyms. Even Whitney's not that big of a problem, because you will have a fully evolved Huntail, who should have the stat line to be able to take on Whitney. After that, you still have Inkay, who's got dark moves, even though it is still unevolved. Deal with Morty. Same with Frillish, who would still have some ghost moves as well. Honestly, even Claire is not all that hard to deal with, all things considered. And even the Elite Four. Really, the only one you'd struggle with to any degree is probably Karen, because she has a Vileplume on the team. This team is really not that good against dark types, unfortunately. But it's also not like bad against dark types either. And then you got to deal with Lance. And Lance is look, you got one fairy type. Hatterene's good, but all those Dragonites run elemental coverage. That's not even taking into account Charizard, Aerodactyl, or Gyarados. I just don't think you could do it. The only region you could become champion in, theoretically, if you could make it to the champion, would be Kanto. Blue, you could defeat. Maybe. Pidgeot comes out first in that battle always. You'd probably want to swap out with Malamar into, I don't know, one of your, maybe Gorbis or something like that. Hopefully you take it down, but if not, it's okay. Then you bring in Malamar or Zoroark to basically just absorb any Psychic moves from Alakazam, take that thing down, switch out, put a water type like Huntail in, deal the Rhydon, bring that down. At that point, you're dealing with grass, water, and fire. The water moves, the water type Mon, you're going to be kind of be neutral against, but you do have 3 at least neutral hitters. Grass is going to be the problematic one, especially if he's using Venusaur. And fire is really not that big of a deal. So yeah, there's definitely ways you could beat blue. The problem simply comes down to you're never getting to blue. You got to deal with Surge. I mean, you got to deal with Brock first, but NK can actually deal with Brock. That's not a big issue. You also got to deal with Misty. Again, not that big of an issue. Surge is another third gym leader who's an electric type. You're done. You can't get past that. I mean, if you could, the next gym in the lineup is freaking Erica, who's a grass type. So it's arguably even worse. Although, to be fair, you do have psychic moves to deal with her poison grass mon, so maybe it's technically a little easier. But neither NK nor Malamar are exceptionally fast, so that would still be problematic. Yeah. And then by the 5th gym, that should be Koga. Again, the only mon you really have that's going to be able to do anything is freaking Malamar at that point. Hatterene is not fully evolved yet, and it's weak to poison. So yeah, it's no good. It's no bueno. So yeah, is it a balanced team? No. But as I always say, is that what I'm going for? No, I go for what works. And what works for what thematically, what works for this character. Until then, though, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. What did you think of the team? Would you do anything different? Put in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.